Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we're talking about something we all need at some point: motivation. Whether you're chasing a big dream, trying to stick to a fitness plan, or just trying to get through your day-to-day tasks, motivation can sometimes feel like the one thing that is just out of reach. But it doesn't have to be that way. And honestly, I think motivation is a good thing to be diving into right now because this is about the time of the year where most people are giving up on their New Year's resolutions. Seeing as only about 9% of people end up keeping their New Year's resolutions throughout the year, finding a strong motivation to keep our goals and ideas takes some time and effort. So let's dive into what motivation is and why it's important. According to positivepsychology.com, motivation is an internal process, whether we define it as a drive or a need. Motivation is a condition inside us that desires a change, either in the self or the environment. Motivation comes from within us. It pushes us to change and drives us to keep going. Most New Year's resolutions have to do with health, exercise, and diet. And most of the things that we want to change is honestly a slow and very grinding process. It isn't something that happens overnight either, which is why it's important to keep our motivation up and we keep pushing forward. It takes a dedicated and daily effort to push these things to change, especially when it comes to our own personal behavior. I mean, that is one of the hardest things to change because it takes a consistent and thoughtful effort. So let's break it down and figure out how to tap into your inner drive and keep it alive. Motivation is a tricky thing. It's not just about willpower. It's about setting the right goals, having a clear purpose, and sometimes creating the right environment for yourself. There are two different kinds of motivation: intrinsic and extrinsic motivation. Intrinsic motivation is when you're driven by internal factors. This is like passion or curiosity, things that make you want to go out and learn more about the world, things that you think yourself that's what you do. These come from the ideas and desires we have for ourselves. This is where we can satisfy our curiosity and find ways to improve ourselves. Intrinsic motivation is often the type that we have the most difficulty with because sometimes it feels like everything is just pulling us to be lazy and procrastinate. An interesting idea I saw in a recent YouTube video is the idea of inertia. Now, Isaac Newton's first law of motion states that an object will remain at rest or continue moving a straight line unless acted upon by an external force. As people, we kind of need to get ourselves off that starting point. We need to get over that initial state of non-movement, I guess you could say. And that initial burst needed can often be the most challenging. So once you get up and move, it can actually be easier to keep your motivation going as long as you keep feeding it, as long as you keep it pushing you forward. And one of the tricks that I've picked up in my life is the 2-minute rule. And honestly, I'm not sure who actually invented this rule. I don't know if anyone's actually coined the term, but it's something that I picked up somewhere along the way and it's really helped me to kind of get over that initial burst to kind of get myself moving again. And so the idea is that you at least work on something for 2 minutes, and then you can kind of find a bit of a groove. If you're sitting in bed scrolling on your phone, it can kind of be difficult to be like, well, I probably should exercise. I know I should exercise. It's what I want to do. It'll help me reach my goal, my fitness goal, but I just want to keep laying in bed. So you kind of have to convince yourself, all right, I'm going to get up and get dressed. And this was something I did when I was really working out in the mornings and going to the gym pretty early. I would end up basically packing my gym bag the night before so that as soon as my alarm went off, I didn't have to think about it. Okay, I have to get all my clothes. There's so many other things I had to worry about, but I could just pick up, go, get in the car. And once I was actually in the car and at the gym, it was much easier to work out as opposed to continuing to lie in bed, thinking about all the things I'd have to do, however mundane they might be. It ended up getting me moving and getting me to where I needed to be. And this 2-minute rule and the idea of motivation also reminded me of the book Essentialism. So you can go check out that video over here. But it's the idea that you need to identify the obvious first step. Identify what you need to do first, and it's often one of the most simple and easy things to do, but it kind of keeps you from moving and keeps you in that state of non-movement, I guess we could say. For me, in writing episodes and doing research for the show, once I start doing it, it becomes a lot more natural and it becomes a lot easier along the way. So it kind of starts to flow a lot more. And usually I'll set a timer for the amount of time I want to work on it, whether it be 45 minutes to an hour and a half. And then I know I've defined what done looks like. I've worked on it enough and I can easily put it aside and go about other things that I'd want to do as well. I know I can work for at least that long, usually about 45 to 60 minutes. And if I work then during that time and accomplish what I want, I know there's a set finish line that you can come across. So I'd encourage you to kind of look at that for yourself. Figure out exactly what you want to do and then start a 2-minute timer or set a timer for how much time you want to spend on it. And then, once that time is up, You can thankfully just walk away if you want to, or a lot of the time I'll end up keep going after the fact because I'm kind of in a groove at that point. Extrinsic motivation comes more from like external rewards. These would be things like money, recognition, and avoiding consequences. For me, these extrinsic motivations are the end results of what I want to accomplish. Whether it be losing weight, being able to bench press a certain weight, or reaching a certain number of people with this show. Helping to define what we want to work towards can also help us get over that initial issue with inertia. And this kind of goes back to my vision statement from a few episodes ago. A world where everyone has the tools, mindset, and confidence to pursue their biggest dreams and build a life that aligns with their deepest values and aspirations. And let's be honest, motivation isn't magic. It's not going to magically make everything accomplished. I mean, if it were, my laundry basket wouldn't be giving me such judgmental looks right now. The truth is, motivation can fail us when we set unrealistic goals or rely on it too much. But having the right goals and choosing the ways that actually help us stick to it and ultimately make it fun help us kindle that first motivation. Ever decide to start running? You buy the gear, you download the app, and then you end up going on a couple of runs and then ultimately give up because it's not really producing any results that you want. I mean, I've done that plenty of times. Ask my wife. Any hobby or thing that I kind of get into, I pick up, I get super into it, I really dive and sink my teeth into it, and then over a couple of months it kind of fades into the background and I continue back into my normal everyday habits. So turns out motivation is just like your Wi-Fi. It's great when it works, but it's way too frustrating when it doesn't. Ask yourself what's driving you. If your motivation isn't aligned with your values, it's going to be a lot harder to sustain. And I think a lot of us think that motivation has to come first and then action follows. But I've often seen it as it's the other way. Taking small, consistent steps actually build momentum, and that momentum creates motivation. In the book Atomic Habits by James Clear, he talks about improving ourselves by 1% each and every day. And if you're able to do this every day, the compounding result is 37 times better by the end of the year. You end up being 37 times better at whatever thing you're doing if you become 1% better every single day. So building consistent habits is crucial to find that motivation. So some helpful tips. Start small. Commit to just a little bit each and every day until you can really find your groove, even if you just commit to 2 minutes at a time. This is to get inertia working for you instead of against you. And honestly, does anyone else remember the Magic School Bus episode where they like jump into a book and there's no friction whatsoever? I think they're playing baseball.
It's all about a world without friction.
I don't know why that pops into my head whenever I'm thinking about inertia, but it's just the idea that they just keep moving and they won't stop unless friction stops them. I don't know why that just pops into my head, but anyway, once you get over that initial hurdle, it becomes much easier to keep the momentum. Honestly, use tools. Habit trackers and accountability partners can make a huge difference. Again, something that I do is use Google Docs. I'll end up either writing in my journal or just creating a checklist for the week on Sundays to kind of do a weekly check-in. Am I actually working towards the things I want to? Am I looking for ways to improve? And do I have clear steps that I can take? And it also helps define what done looks like. I know when those things are done, I can go about playing video games or watching TV or doing whatever I want because I know I've done what I needed to get done. So find ways to actually set goals and check in with yourself and kind of reflect on what you actually want to accomplish. Sundays for me kind of turn into this reflection point where I look back on the week, think about what I'm doing, and then look at next week and say, well, what could I have done better, or what else do I want to accomplish in order to help accomplish my dreams? And another key fact for that is that I'm actually writing down the things. It's one thing to have the idea in your head and another thing to actually have it down on paper. It kind of materializes in a way, makes it real so that you actually have something to look towards and know, hey, this isn't just an idea. This is really something that I want to accomplish and could better my life. And a really sneaky tip is that your brain loves small wins. That's why crossing something off a to-do list gives us a little burst of dopamine. It just rewards yourself for doing these little things. So find a way to reward yourself for milestones. Set those markers so that you know what you're working towards and help kind of kindle and keep that motivation fire burning. Celebrate progress to keep yourself engaged, and this is really a critical step for motivation. If you're not celebrating your wins, then ultimately you're going to lose faith, think that nothing's actually being accomplished, and then give up entirely. So for me, honestly, chocolate peanut butter works every freaking time. So celebrate the milestones so that you're actually seeing the growth. Seeing that you're making progress towards your goals keeps you moving and keeps you motivated for the future. And honestly, for me, it's always going to be chocolate peanut butter. It's always going to be chocolate and peanut butter in some form because That's just what I love. Might not work so well for when I'm exercising or trying to lose weight, but hey, gotta keep myself going somehow. And no matter how motivated you feel, setbacks are inevitable. But what really matters is how you respond. Remember, we're the only things that we can really control. We can control how we respond to setbacks and failures. And ultimately, success is built on a mountain of failures. It's how you deal with that and learn from them that actually push you towards that success. And again, Greg McKeown talks about this in a couple of his books, where we don't really need to push ourselves to the brink of exhaustion and burnout. Even though burnout in today's age is kind of worn as this badge of honor, that we pull 16-hour shifts, we get 4 hours of sleep, and then we ultimately are able to do everything, and then we just collapse on the weekends from complete exhaustion. What ends up happening is that we end up pushing ourselves to burnout, especially in the things we want to accomplish in our own lives. We push ourselves to burnout and then ultimately give up on them for months and months on end, and we return to that state of non-movement. And then we have to get back over that initial hurdle to overcome that inertia to get moving again. And ultimately, and a lot of the times, it requires a bigger and bigger push every time we stop to try to get moving again. So try not to give up on your goals and know that setbacks are just a part of life and a part of succeeding. Ultimately, it's up to you on how you respond and how you find ways to actually learn them. Reframe failures as learning opportunities. Here's an awesome quote from Zig Ziglar. Failure is an event, not a person. Just because you end up falling short in something that you think you should have control over or should be able to accomplish doesn't mean that it's you who's failing. It just means that event was a failure. We all experience failures. It doesn't mean that we are failures. Finding ways to use failures and shortcomings to build ourselves up and others as well can help fuel our motivation. And of course, if we're talking about motivation, we have to talk about its evil twin, procrastination. And ultimately, to overcome procrastination, you kind of have to have that why in your mind. Why did you want to start this goal in the first place? Keeping that in mind can help reignite your motivation, can help you find that flame to keep you going. Keep it in the forefront of your mind. Write it down and put it in a place that you'll constantly see it and remember it. Remember your why and ultimately what you're working towards. Ultimately, I want to help people find meaningful careers and meaningful lives. I want to make a difference in the world, but that doesn't mean that I know everything either. There are still plenty of lessons and ideas that I know nothing about that I'm trying to help convince and portray to you. Ultimately, that was one of the motivations for this show. I thought I was kind of stagnant in my career and in my life, and I wanted to find a way to push myself to learn other things. So I'm trying to improve myself every day and find ways to share my story and the story of people and their career paths to help you guys all have a frame of reference. So now let's talk about keeping motivation and keeping inspired in the long run. Surround yourself with positivity. Seek out role models and keep learning. Growth is one of the biggest motivators out there. Find inspirational speeches or heroes in media that you can actually look toward. Podcasts, books, YouTube channels on self-development and improvement. Find motivational people that inspire you to work hard and achieve more. There are tons of motivational videos and training montages of people achieving more and working towards their goals. And whether it be in podcasts or YouTube channels or even movies or musicals, I look at some of the people in these shows and think, wow, how can I get into that training montage and kind of find a way to build myself up like they are? And even though it's not nearly the 30-second montage that they show, I know that over time I can get there in the end. You can also join a community or group with similar goals. You can find a Discord or a social group where people share their achievements and successes and hopefully even failures and what they learned from them. Being able to come together with like-minded people that help build you up and push you forward can be super beneficial. Let me know down in the comments if you have something that you're working towards or whatever your New Year's resolutions are and what you want to achieve. Maybe we can turn the comment section into a place where you can find that support and hopefully find other people to build you up. Another key aspect of staying inspired in the long run is creating something to help you visualize your dreams. Something that you can look towards and remind you of your why and what you're ultimately going for. This can be whatever you want it to be. Vision boards can be used to help visualize what you're striving for, and I know my family has a habit of writing messages or taping things in bathroom mirrors, so they're reminded of it every morning and night. It's something that always puts it at kind of the forefront of your mind, which can be really helpful if you're really trying to instill it in yourself and in your behavior. It takes a lot to change human behavior, and it takes a daily, consistent effort. And sometimes we forget that motivation isn't all about a grind all the time. Injecting fun into the goal can be a real game changer. Find ways to make it fun and find things that you actually want to work towards and enjoy. It doesn't always have to be about the extrinsic factors. You can find intrinsic motivation factors that push you just as far and just as hard. So there you have it. Hopefully it's a couple of ways to keep your motivation flowing. Remember, motivation isn't something you wait for, it's something that you actually cultivate. Now I want to hear from you. What's been your biggest struggle with staying motivated? Drop it in the comments below and let's see if we can figure out a way to get around that. Let's try to help each other out and find ways to push ourselves to new heights. If you found this video to be helpful, make sure to give it a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button for more content like this. Ultimately, motivation is necessary, fleeting, and honestly probably a bit overhyped. But with the right strategies that actually fit your personality and what you want to achieve, you can keep the grind going. And if not, just bribe yourself with chocolate. Works for me every time. Catch you guys later.